Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm going to be doing a watercolour for you today. As you can see, I've already drawn the scene out. This is the reference photo. I'm okay to show this, it's a royalty-free one. And as you can see, I've left out quite a lot of stuff from the original picture. I've not drawn in the stream, I've left out the sheep, I've left out the birds, and I've changed this area just here as well. Not through artistic license really, more through laziness I guess, than anything else. I just really wanted to save time on the drawing actually, because I haven't done a painting for a while and I was desperate to get back to watercolours again. So I decided just to leave as much out as I possibly could and just concentrate on the painting. Now the paper that I'm going to be using today is 10 by 7 inches. Usually I work on A4 size, but this is quite a little bit smaller. And it's the Daler Rowney Langton Prestige. It's a rough grain. I bought this pad after Daler Rowney sent me some free samples of this paper, and I really enjoyed using it, so I went out and bought some. Like I say, it's a rough grain, it's quite difficult to draw on. Your pencil lines seem to sort of slide one side of the grain or the other. As you're trying to draw a straight line, it sort of gets a bit wobbly and a bit tricky to get that fine detail in there. But for watercolour, it's absolutely beautiful to work on. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So I'll get some colours mixed up and we'll get started. Okay, so I've got a few colours mixed up ready to go. It's cobalt blue on its own, and that's cobalt blue with crimson to make a blue purple sort of colour. And that's just yellow ochre, and that's cerulean blue. And they're going to be my sky colours. I might just add in a little bit of Payne's grey or even ultramarine just into the cobalt blue, just to darken the top area of the sky, but I'm going to just see what it looks like first, and then I can decide if it just needs to be darker. So I'm going to start by wetting the paper all over. It's the same as I always do, I always start wetting the paper all over, particularly when there's a pencil, you know, a full-on pencil drawing on there, because it does help to fix the graphite a little bit. I'm just getting that nice and wet, and I'm just being fairly light with the brush stroke so that I don't smudge the graphite at all. Right, so I'm going to go straight in with the yellow ochre. It's literally everywhere. Make sure I've got plenty around the bottom part of the sky there. So just a very light tint, if you like, just to get started. And then while that's still wet, I'm going to use the purple colour. We'll go straight across everything, so I'm going to sponge it out in a minute. That sort of darker purple area just in the back there. A bit high, and then with a bit of cobalt blue, just on the top part of the sky there. Right, okay. Before that dries completely, I'm going to get some clean dry tissue, fold it up to a nice sharp corner. I'm just going to start dabbing out where I don't want the paint to be. And usually what happens with these cotton rag papers, even though you just dabbed it out, because the paper's still damp, the pigment still runs back in. So you have to repeat this process a few times, just to make sure that you're back to the clean white paper again. Okay, so now that's nice and dry. I've just mixed up a little bit of cadmium red with the cobalt blue, just to make a purple grey colour. I'm going to be using that to start painting in the roofs. Start with this one, it sort of goes at the back of the tree. Yeah, that's okay. And what I'm going to do, where it sort of goes at the back of the tree there, and there's probably a few other buildings and everything, I'm just going to sort of wet the edge of that and just let it just kind of running at the back of the trees there. Just give the illusion that there's probably something going on there. Okay, on to the next. I'm using a fairly small brush so that I can get into all the little nooks and crannies on the rough paper and try and keep a relatively straight line. Right, okay, oh, I can just see one that I've missed out. There's a little tiny one just way off in the distance just there. That'll be alright. Okay then. Okay, so I'm going to mix up some burnt sienna and a little bit of yellow ochre. I'll just paint these in red. Whenever I see these red pan-tiled roofs, it always reminds me of Norfolk. In the UK, I know there's a Norfolk in America as well. There's probably a Norfolk in a lot of countries, but the one I'm talking about is in England. But I don't actually know where this scene is. I don't think it's certainly not Norfolk. I know it's not. I'm not sure where it is at all actually. Maybe if anybody's looking at this and they know where it is, I'd love to know. Okay, so now all the roofs are dry. I've mixed up some raw umber, fairly watery. And I'm just literally going to just paint in all the buildings with that colour. Obviously except the ones that are white. Just as a first wash. And again, when we come to this part just here near the tree, I'm just going to get some clean water on the brush and just pull it into the back of the tree a little bit. A few little spots just sort of showing through the leaves here and there. Just to give the impression that there's some other buildings going on in the background there. I mean, most of that will be covered up when I come to do the foliage on this anyway, so as long as I've just got just a little hint of colour at the back there, it won't look too empty. Okay, the same colour on the church. Carefully paint around the tops of those hedges as well. Right, so now that's dry, I'm just going to use the same mix of raw umber. I've just put a little drop of burnt sienna in there. I'm keeping it fairly watered down. It's just a slightly lighter but warmer version as what I've already put down. There's just a few areas, like just the bottom part of this church, which is just a little bit warmer in colour. Now with that purple shadow colour that I had originally mix right at the very start. I'm just going to water that down a little bit. Just add a touch more cobalt blue to it. And I'm going to mix a nice sort of shadow colour. Okay, I quickly just dried that off with the hairdryer off camera. So now I can put some shading down the side of the church just here. I'll put a glaze over these as well. Just darken them up just a little bit. Right, so now it's time to paint the trees, and for that I'm going to use a mix of Hooker's Green and Yellow Ochre, and then I've got another mix of Hooker's Green and Crimson, which is a nice dark green, and then I've got some Lemon Yellow just on its own, so I can just drop it in on the tops of the trees to create a little bit of sunlight hitting them. This one is the Hooker's Green and Yellow Ochre. I'm just going to use just a little tiny touch of lemon yellow, just touched in on the top. Okay, hopefully they should be almost dry enough to do this one. That lemon yellow really makes them look nice, I think. Well, while that's drying, I could actually paint this hedge, so I think I'll get on and do that. I'm just going to use the medium Hooker's Green for this. Just going to leave a gap at the top though for the yellow. And while that's still actually wet, I'm just going to use a little bit of the dark green, the Hooker's Green and the Crimson. Whoa, that might be too much, perhaps I'm going to sort of drop it a little bit in just along the bottom edge. Just a little bit of variation there. Okay, on with the foreground then. That colour there, actually, it's not that far off what's in the picture actually, but I'm just going to give it a light, very light. It's just Hooker's Green and Yellow Ochre, but it's so watered down, it's hardly anything. And while that's still wet, I'm going to use some raw umber and just touch it in along that bottom edge there. Just sort of give the effect of those sort of dry grasses and everything just growing up along that fence line. Okay, and now I'm just going to add a little bit of cobalt blue with the, what was I using? Raw umber, just so it's a little bit darker, a little bit greyer. Almost like a shadow colour. I'm just going to do the same again, just here and there though, not everywhere. Just a few little spots, just to let it sort of run into the raw umber while it's still wet. I think that should just about do it now. Now I'll leave that to dry. Actually, that was a big blob just there, doesn't matter. I'm going to leave that to dry and then I'm going to just repeat the process underneath on the second field. Right, okay, same again. I've just added the Hooker's Green to this wash, to the same wash as that. Just a little touch, just to darken it off just a little bit. Right, same again, I'm going to use raw umber. Just touch it in just along the base and let it diffuse into the wet paint above it. Right, so for this part now, what I'm going to try to do is just put a little bit of a like dry brush technique just here and there with some of that purple shadow colour. I've just added a little bit more blue in there. You need the brush to be fairly dry for this. I'm sort of relying on the texture of the paper. To get a nice sort of dry brush effect. Okay, I think that'll be alright for that. It looks very messy at the minute, but it should be okay with a few glazes over it. So I'll just let that dry for a minute, then I'll come back and I can glaze that then. Okay, that's nice and dry. So I'm going to start to glaze over that with a light wash of Hooker's Green and yellow ochre. A bit more paint on the brush. And I'm just going to drop a little bit of yellow in there. I'm going to be very gentle. So I don't pull up any of the layers underneath, even a little bit of raw umber, just give a slight tint just here and there. Okay, so it definitely needs another glaze over these bits. So I'm just going to use a little bit of Hooker's Green again, with a touch more yellow ochre, nice and light. And hopefully that should kind of pull that together a little bit. See how we go. Yeah, that's pulled it in together nicely. Okay, so while I'm just waiting for that to dry, I'm just going to clean an area on the palette. I'm just going to mix up some cerulean blue, because I think I might put a few light glazes over some of the roofs, some of the areas in the background, just to sort of cool them off a little bit, and that should help them sort of recede into the distance just a little bit more. So I'm just going to use some cerulean blue on this hedge just there. It's very weak. I can always go over it with another coat, and if I'm really unsure I can start using the colour previewers. And that should help things greatly. But at the minute I feel fairly confident that this is going to do the trick. Yeah, I think that's looking quite a bit better actually. I might even go over that again. I think I'm going to check it first with the colour previewers though before I do. So the colours I'm going to use for this foreground tree, I've mixed two colours up. I've mixed a fairly light green, which is Hooker's green, with a bit of lemon yellow and a touch of yellow ochre in it, and then I've mixed an almost black green from Hooker's green and crimson. And I'm just going to start off with the light green, just in some of the lighter areas, which are sort of around here, just on the top parts of the branches. I'm just going to spot this on, just dab it on. It's going to take me a long time, it's probably going to take about half an hour to do this, so of course I will edit the video so you don't have to sit through all this. That's kind of the light green, and then I'll just show you the dark green, which is going to be in the darker areas. These areas here are fairly dark. So I'm putting it on really fine, little fine spots. But that's the dark green anyway. And when the lighter green's finished, I shall kind of, when it's finished, when it's dry, I shall kind of work in and around that to create some of the shadow areas. Okay, so the tree's now done, and I'm just not really happy with this foreground. I've got the white gouache ready to put a few little white flowers and everything there, but I'm just not happy with the general colour of it. So I've got Maria Kellner's colour previewers, and I've tested a few out, and I think the sap green on that foreground, not so much the darker one, but maybe the lighter one, I think is going to be the answer. Just a very light transparent green just over there. Even I tried with the yellow. I like them both, but let's mix them together. I mean, I could do sort of a yellow glaze on that top part and bring it down into slightly darker green on the bottom. Yeah, I'm swaying more towards the sap green colour. I haven't got sap green, well I have got sap green, but it's not on the palette at the minute, so I'm going to make do with Hooker's green and put a little bit of lemon yellow in it, or a little bit of cad yellow or something. Yeah, let's go for that. Right, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet the area first and be really quick before it actually starts to dissolve the paint, and I'm going to sort of drop the green more towards the bottom, so it's a little bit darker towards the bottom and not quite so much on the top. Okay, so I'm going to be really quick. And there you go, that was the answer, definitely, look at that. Thank you so much, Maria, for sending me these colour previewers. Wow. That's it, that's done it, that's brilliant. Right, so I'm just going to let that dry off. It's going to dry a little bit lighter, might even put another glaze over. I can even test it before I do. But I'm definitely going to put a few little white flowers just here and there, just to add just a little bit of life to the foreground. So I'll let that dry for a minute. Right, so that's dried. It's obviously dried a little bit lighter, but I think that's a vast improvement. I think I might even go for another one as well. Not necessarily along the top part, but particularly down the bottom part, right in the foreground here. I think even darker. It'd look good. Yeah, I'm going to risk it. So I'm going to do exactly the same again. I'm going to wet the whole area, but this time I'm just going to put the green in the bottom, so I've got another light glaze right in the foreground there. Make sure the paper's bone dry before you do this as well. Okay. I don't know how well that's picking up on camera, but that just looks amazing from where I'm sitting. It's just really transformed it, and I'd have never guessed that. Absolutely brilliant. I'm even going to check, see if I could get away with another one. I think I even could, you know, when that's dry. I'll let it dry though, and I'll see what it looks like. Okay, so that's dry, and it's looking much better. And yes, I've just held this over again, and I think I might even go for another one. Why not? It just seems that to darken this foreground off is just really doing something for the picture. So I'm going to do it again. It just goes to show you, doesn't it? I wouldn't dream of doing this if it wasn't for the colour previewers. Oops, makes the paint a bit darker. So I want to sort of keep it just towards the bottom edge. It's only very light, nice light transparent glaze, but the more I build it up in this foreground, the more of a nicer effect it's having. So again, I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to hold the colour preview over it again. It might even need another one. Maybe not, oh, I don't know. Well, we'll let it dry and we'll see. Okay, that's it. I think that's done the trick. I'm really happy with that. I'm not going to put any more glazes over that now. I think that's just about right. But what I am going to do is just put a few little dots here and there of white gouache. I'm just going to dip the brush straight in, get a little bit on the tip. A few little white dots just to suggest a few little flowers. Okay, I actually abandoned the idea of white flowers in the foreground using the white gouache. I didn't like the look of it, so I dabbed it off with a tissue, completely removed it, and then I decided to keep building up the layers in the foreground with the help of the colour previewers to get it nice and dark. And I even put some more glazes over these fields just here, and some more glazes over the trees and bushes in the background. And also you'll probably notice as well, I've actually added more detail and darkened up the foreground tree as well. And all that was done because of these colour previewers. They've given me the confidence to actually keep going, building up those layers without actually going too far and spoiling the picture, because I can just literally hold this over and think, that's going to be the colour of the next glaze. Is that going to be too much? Is it going to be too dark? Or is it going to be just right? And you can, you know, assess the colours, the colour evaluation, just purely through these. They're absolutely brilliant. I'm going to leave a link to them in the description below, to Maria Kellner's website, where you can actually go and buy these. I have to say, I'm not financially involved in any way at all. This is an absolute genuine opinion of mine. I've been using them for several months. You'll probably remember I'd done an initial review of them a few months ago when I initially got them, but I've been using them for several months now, and I can honestly, wholeheartedly recommend these. They are absolutely fantastic. They've changed the way I paint. They've given me a whole lot more confidence. So if you struggle, particularly with foregrounds and glazing and things like that, if you have difficulties in watercolour, or any medium for that matter, I think you'll find these an enormous help. I certainly did. So, like I say, I'll put a link in the description below where you can go and take a look at these and purchase them. And yeah, so that's the finished painting. I'm not going to do any more on that now, but I think you'll agree it probably looks a lot better than it did the stage before. So I hope, you know, in some way that was helpful to you. You got some tips or some inspiration. So thanks very much for viewing, and I'll see you next time. Take care everybody. Bye for now.